I really could go crazy. No matter what diet I try, the weight always comes back. None of them work. Diets are stupid and a marketing scam. People everywhere have weight problems. Nowadays, as we simply have to eat and cannot avoid it like other drugs. It's a very nasty kind of addiction. Overweight is among the most common problems and a very good indicator for future health problems nonetheless. Even with a lot of diets available and a lot of information available, the problem still gets worse, not better. One could argue that most of that information is actually quite confusing and there's too much of it out there, not too little. Today we will learn how to correctly identify your real problems and then lose weight in a sustainable manner. This is both true for people that are overweight and for people who want to lose weight for the good-looking physique selfie, for example. But first, obesity is a thing because the context in which we evolved and the one we live in nowadays differ greatly. We are programmed to like energy-dense food as well as combat bad emotions with immediate pleasure. That programming is largely genetic, up to 70% can be explained due to genes, but it can be changed. After all, eating and dieting are behaviors that we can control if we are fully determined. The difficult is preferable to the impossible all the time. But let us begin with a short frame of reference that I like to use to motivate the entire topic. What we see here is the landscape of losing weight, so to speak, and there are all kinds of entries. At the top part there's a timeline, how long people usually take on average to lose the body weight and arrive somewhere pretty good. There are lots of outliers nonetheless, but this is kind of average. And to the left there are all kinds of, immediate things that people try when they just start out. And the further we progress to the right side of the map, the more profound the things get, the more difficult they are to attain. And at the beginning there are all kinds of typical pitfalls, and a typical path through the entire map might look something like this. Well, when we first encounter bad emotions and overweight, for example, we might want to change our situation. And the first thing that comes to mind, because it's propagated a lot, is that we just have to do cardio. And when that does not work, we try all kinds of meme diets, like only eating cabbage soup or something. And then we might try spot reduction, because we only want to lose the belly fat and not all the fat. The other fat is kind of okay. And when that doesn't work, we might even try crash diets, and which usually leads to binge eating and then trying to fast. And only after all those things failed, people will try to, get more educated and try more sustainable approaches. And after that, they can get on a good diet, maybe even have solved the ultimate problem of their weight, and then they can progress towards a nice body and all those other goals. But this usually takes a lot of trial and error and a lot of falling for memes, for example, which isn't too nice. Okay, but the first step when we want to lose weight is obviously to inform ourselves well and get a good frame of reference. A good frame of reference is very valuable because now you can avoid all the memes, all the crash diet and all those things. Otherwise, you will be always prone to coping mechanisms and misdirections. You further have to correctly diagnose and fix the ultimate cause of your weight problems. Bad emotions in most cases, and delusions about what fixes them. For this, I like to refer to an entire playlist on good emotions in the comment section that I have created. If you eat because you have bad emotions and you don't fix the bad emotions, you will never get rid of your weight problems. It is impossible, because the ultimate cause is left untreated. And only then can we really start to diet successfully and have to follow a good gradual approach and a caloric deficit. The caloric deficit is undebatable. All diets are just means to an end to achieve a caloric deficit in a very convenient manner most of the time. Some diets work for some people. Just choose what works for you. But now again to a short illustration why we can't follow crash diets. All the people like it because everyone wants fast results. What we can see here is our total daily energy expenditure, which is the blue line, and our caloric intake, which is the red line. When we drastically reduce our caloric intake, our body's energy expenditure will adapt to the intake. If it wouldn't do that, our body would just die. And our body and our mind are machines that are designed to survive. We are still here after after many billions of years of evolution. If our body can do one thing pretty good, it is save energy and survive. So whatever we do, our body's caloric intake and our TDEE will always be more or less the same after a time. It can't be below a certain threshold, but it will downwards adapt very fast. And when your energy expenditure is very low, you simply cannot lose weight anymore because you can't reduce your calories even further. It would require an ungodly amount of willpower, and no one really has that. Thus, we have the following problem. When we reintroduce calories, and everyone will do that at some point, because willpower and discipline and motivation are all limited resources, then we eat at normal levels again. But now we have a big problem, because the upwards adaptation speed is much, much slower than the downwards adaptation speed. And if you compare the areas between the left curve, the blue area, and the red area, you will notice that even if you eat the same thing after the diet as before, you will gain even more weight than before. This is a reason for the JoJo effect, or however it is called in English. I will probably butcher it in a major way. And this is a reason why you should never crash diet. At least if you want to lose more than 10 kilograms or things like that. It is always a bad idea. After 3 weeks, our body will start to adapt to whatever we changed, and it will do so very rapidly. Okay, but how to do it in a proper way? Well, if you are very overweight, maybe starting at 35% body fat or even more, you should do a very gradual approach and gradually reduce the calories. If you are very overweight, you can get away with a bigger deficit because you just have to remove, for example, the soda water or the calorie-heavy drinks like alcohol in the beginning, and you will also lose tons of weight already. And then you can gradually reduce the junk food in your diet, maybe even add green tea that acts as a hunger suppressant and as a stimulant both at once. And once you approach the territory of maybe 25% body fat, you can even start to introduce lifting to your weight loss regime. This all assumes that your bad emotions and the ultimate causes for your weight problems are already fixed, by the way. And when you start lifting, you can keep up your TDEE much easier when you compare to the last figure, as if you wouldn't do that, because the body needs energy to keep muscles on your body. It can't just catabolize your muscles. And then you start eating real, natural, good food, and maybe even introduce vegetables and protein. And the lower you get, the lower your deficit has to become, and the lower the weight loss is, the slower the weight loss is. In the end, you can maybe do a sprint to your goal body fat level while doing cardio and using some fat burners. But in the beginning, it is useless. You should always follow a gradual approach when you try to lose weight. The body really hates any fast changes and will rebel against it. And as a personal example, I also was overweight at some point, so I speak from experience to some degree. The left picture was never meant to be shown to others, but hence the bad quality. But here it is, nonetheless. I injured myself while climbing and lifting, and I did not change my eating, so I lost all kinds of muscles and gained all kinds of fat in return. I went from maybe 70 kilogram to 105 and had to lose it back all again, but the result can be seen on the right, and I followed pretty much the diet that I just described. I fixed the initial problem. In my case, it was the injury and the missing knowledge about it, and then I dieted down. And this is a very sustainable approach. I maybe have to point out that I don't look like the picture on the right every day. It's peak performance, so to speak. I did that picture once for looking good. Okay, but maybe we can even have a look at some priorities that I like to illustrate using a pyramid most of the time. When you want to diet, you should make very sure to follow a good set of priorities and don't fall for typical problems. For example, in the beginning, you should make very sure that you have right knowledge. You should know how all of this works. Otherwise, you will have a problem. It won't work without right knowledge, because you will go in all kinds of wrong directions. And the next most important thing is that your hunger management and your long-term sustainability of the diet are on point. You can only use a diet that works for you in a very comfortable manner. If it is hard to manage your hunger because you only eat once a day and can't do that physically, then it's a bad diet for you. Choose a diet that works for you and is convenient in the long run. And then choose the right caloric deficit. No more than 300 to 500 kilocalories in most cases. When you are below 25% body fat, it's a very bad idea to deviate from that. If the deficit is small enough, our bodies won't adapt to it as fast, and we can lose weight for the long run. Otherwise, it is very difficult. And only then comes lifting to make sure that the total daily energy expenditure remains high, which is very important and much more important than cardio. As soon as you stop the cardio, the weight will come back, while the muscles take a lot longer to vanish. And as the last measure you can take, there are fat burners available. But you shouldn't really take them early on in your diet. Most people should probably never take them at all, because your body will also adapt to them. The body adapts to everything, and you build up a tolerance to them. And after a while, if you leave out the 6 coffees that you drink to burn fat, then you will gain all the weight back again, because the TDE goes down again, and all the measures you take had to be permanent for the weight loss to be permanent. And you can keep up muscles, for example, for a very long time, but keeping up cardio and fat burners all the time is not very realistic, to be honest. And you should make very sure that you direct your energy where it matters, namely at the bottom part of the pyramid and not at the top part, which is very important. Okay, but in summary, let us maybe now come to the most important point of all of this diet stuff. It is very confusing, and I know that, and many people propagate pretty false or faulty information, even if they mean well. And this is very important to keep in mind. People aren't necessarily evil, but they can be quite deluded about the things they tell you about. Okay, first, many people are obese or overweight. This is undeniable, especially in the Western world, for example, Germany or the United States, where people approach 50 between 80% of overweight. But both overweight and obesity have conditions and causes. When you remove the causes, the symptoms will vanish on their own in many cases, unless you have a very deeply ingrained habit. In that case, one of the condition and causes is a bad habit. The cause is a mixture of bad emotions and habits thus, and wrong knowledge. Never omit wrong knowledge. If you think you do right but you don't do right, then you won't change your behavior and will be frustrated. Remove the bad emotions by, for example, meditation, and then gradually introduce a diet and a healthy lifestyle, and most of your problems will be gone within a year or two if you have a somewhat normal starting position. There are many false approaches and pitfalls. Any diet requires a caloric deficit, and if you want weight loss to be permanent, the diet has to be a lifestyle change and has to be permanent too. Otherwise, you will just converge back to your prior weight and to your weight problems. Okay, and that is pretty much it for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, maybe share it with other people and leave me a like, so I know to produce more of this style of content in the future. Also, you can subscribe to the channel if you wish. And if you feel like I missed something or misrepresented something, also let me know in the comment section so that other people, and especially I, can benefit from your wisdom. But until then, I wish you a pleasant day and goodbye.